Hi! In this video, we'll cover both temple arts and Mushin arts, completing our skill tree research. We have come a long way. If you missed any of the previous videos on prosthetic arts, shinobi arts, or ashina arts, feel free to check them out. Important note, the English text for some of the combat arts and skills is different depending on the menu you're in. Sculptor's idle, skill menu, skill equip menu, or skill tab on the inventory screen. The Japanese is the exact same everywhere, however, the localization can vary quite considerably between the three menus. In this video, I will discuss the localization from the skill tab of the inventory screen. That's where all the screenshots are from. I found that those are more accurate in general and tend to have more of the original text localized, so we'll go with those. As usual, we'll quickly go over the disclaimers, legend, and sources. If it's not your first time around, feel free to skip ahead. Number 1, use common sense. Please do not assume that I have access to some secret true knowledge. I'm just entertained by reading Sekiro in Japanese. My lore theories are just theories, so treat them accordingly. Number 2, I'm not a professional translator. I have never worked in localization. Yes, I will say that something is translated poorly and something is not, and it will be my personal point of view. Ultimately, my goal is to give you the information so you can see if the localization was good or not, whether something important was lost or not. My opinion is just that, and I choose to share it. Number 3, I'm not an expert on Buddhism or Shintoism. I will leave links to the religious terms that we will encounter so you can read more on your own if you're interested. As usual, the transcriptions I give do not follow all academic rules, and I don't think it's necessary. They're just here to represent the pronunciation in case you're curious. All sources I used for this research will be listed in the description box below, along with all the additional information that I referenced throughout the video, so you can read more if you're interested. There you will also find a link to my original blog post if you want to read it through. Temple arts are different from all the arts we've seen before because it's not a style like ashina arts, and it's not a set of skills like shinobi arts or prosthetic arts. It's Kenpo, a martial art. Kenpo is a generic term for several Japanese martial arts. It is a Japanese translation of a Chinese word. This term was widely adopted by various different cultures, so the definition is kind of blurry. There is also a relatively modern martial art called Nippon Kenpo that uses hand and feet striking techniques. So this item's original name is Senpouji Kenpo no Densho, a secret book of Senpou Temple Kenpo, or a secret book of Senpou Temple martial art. The localization calls it Senpou style and then, where appropriate, martial art. Let's talk about the pursuit of virtue or making merit. We've already seen it when we talked about divine abduction. The kids were lured to the mountain on the promises of making merit, and at the time it wasn't really clear what merit they were supposed to make and why. The Japanese phrase for it is kodoku wo tsumu, to make merit, to accumulate merit, or to accumulate reward for virtuous deeds. Merit is a fundamental concept in Buddhism, and merit-making is an important Buddhist practice. In simple terms, merit accumulates from doing good deeds, and it influences, in a positive way, retribution and the quality of the next life, and also how close one is to enlightenment. There are many forms of merit-making described in Buddhist texts, such as mental development, giving, certain rituals and daily and weekly practices, and so on. Kodoku is basically a divine reward for doing good things, and this is what Senpou monks were driven by before they got corrupted. Martial art mastery was also one of their practices for merit-making, as evidenced by the description of this esoteric text. There is one line that the localization skipped, and it's something of a wordplay or kanji play that runs through the rest of the description. So Kenpo is comprised of two kanji, kobushi, fist, and ho, method, but it is also nori, teachings of Buddha or Buddhist doctrine. Nori is a Buddhist teaching. I feel like this line is mostly intended for switching the reader's attention to the fact that in this description, the kanji ho is used not in its method meaning, but as teachings of Buddha, which explains the next line. To defeat Buddha's enemies with only your body, you must lack neither fists nor knowledge of Buddha's teachings. These two kanji together make Kenpo, but here they are separated to tell you that you should be mindful about both if you want to defeat Buddha's enemies. The last line continues this same kanji play by saying that they lost the Buddhist teachings and their fists are also warped. Sounds weird in English, but it's perfect in Japanese. The verb yugamu means to warp, to contort, to be perverted. Generally, it describes something changed in a bad way. Honestly, before reading this description, I didn't even know that you could read ho as nori. It is a widespread kanji that is predominantly used in its method meaning and is read ho. I think the localization did a good job not dragging this kanji play into the localized description. I think their explanation turned out great, it's graceful, and the gist is all there. Still, it was curious diving deep into the original because when I read it for the first time, I certainly felt like I was missing something. Moving on. The original name of praying strikes is ogami rengen, which can literally be translated as successive praying strikes. Ogamu means to assume the posture of praying or to do reverence like before a statue of the Buddha, so it fits the context perfectly. Here we can also see the verb tatami kakeru, and I'm convinced now that it has to do with your attacks overwhelming your opponent, as the description suggests. The last paragraph should be in the past tense, since both the verb form and the word katsute, formerly once before, point at that. Before Senpou Temple fell victim to the pursuit of immortality, accumulating strength through praying and martial arts to defeat the enemies of the Buddha was one of their practices of merit-making. Praying strikes exorcism is a more advanced form of praying strikes. Its original name is ogami rengen hama no kata, successive praying strikes exorcism kata. Kata denotes a style of something, a type, but it can also be kata, a set sequence of positions and movements in martial arts, which is the case here. The first couple of lines in the second paragraph are actually the exact same ones from praying strikes. The localization translates them very differently. Luckily, it preserved once, so the whole last paragraph is in the past tense as it should be. Those from the Senpou Temple used to strike with the shoulder and exorcise worldly desires at the same time, but not sure where the last line from the localized description comes from. The original says nothing of other foul passions. It just implies that they used this practice of exorcism to purge worldly desires, but now they basically use it just to beat the crap out of people because they're all corrupted now. I think all descriptions of temple arts are meant to juxtapose the monks' past to their present and show you that they used to be rightful servants of Buddha, practicing martial arts and religious rituals, but now all of it just serves their vile purposes. The word bonno, worldly desires, is a religious term that denotes mental states that cloud the mind and that are to be cleansed, such as anxiety, fear, jealousy, and so on. Its original name is Senpou Gyaku, Senpou kick. This kick bears the name of the Senpou Temple. Hermitry is Satori. The word Senpou consists of sen, hermit, and mine, peak, pointing on the reclusive nature of the Senpou Temple monks. In some descriptions of the temple arts, these two kanji are used separately, just like we saw with Kenpo. Satori is a Buddhist term for enlightenment, and it is considered to be a first step towards nirvana. Those who try to climb the peak of Satori start with a kick. The training will begin from there. The word used for training, shugo, can also mean ascetic practices and be a Buddhist term denoting an ego-transcending spiritual practice aimed at detachment from worldly desires. The localized version of this description might not be as accurate as one would hope, but temple arts are chock full of complicated Buddhist terms and words that have multiple meanings, and all of them kind of fit, and also a bunch of kanji that are brought together to constitute a word and then brought apart to be two separate words while retaining their meaning. It's crazy. We've reached the Ogi skill of this tree, High Monk. Its original name is Senpouji Bosatsugyaku, Senpou Temple Bodhisattva Kick. We have already encountered the word Bosatsu, Bodhisattva, the one who achieved enlightenment, Satori, and who offers guidance to all living beings while moving towards Buddhahood. Another meaning of Bosatsu is indeed High Monk, a title bestowed by imperial court upon a high-ranking priest. I personally think that this art is Bodhisattva Kick because of all the Satori talk we read earlier, but I understand why the localization chose High Monk over Bodhisattva. The line, the embodiment of Buddha, in the original is actually the embodiment or a form of a Bodhisattva. The rest of the description is quite accurate. The localization skipped one line because they ran out of space. This art shows the foundation one relies upon when making judgment. This line was kinda confusing to me, so the translation might not be 100% accurate, but it has to do with the attack being different for everyone and showing their personality in execution. The funniest thing is that the localization really doubts that you remember the name of Wolf's sword, so instead of Xabimaru, as in the original, it says his master's gift. Let's move on to the passive skills of this tree. Virtuous Deed is Kudoku. We have already covered the meaning of this word, so let's not repeat ourselves. The localized description is accurate. Focus on deeds of virtue is again to accumulate merit or to accumulate reward for virtuous deeds. In the days long gone, the practice of merit making was the main focus of the Senpou temple, but unfortunately things changed. Saranaru Kudoku, literally even more virtuous deed. The description is almost identical to that of the virtuous deed, but has more emphasis. I really wish the localization translated gure-guremo, sincerely, earnestly. One should focus only on continued deeds of virtue and sincerely or completely forego any thoughts of attaining wealth. Devotion's original name is Shinjin, faith, piety, devotion. When describing the effect, the original says that it prolongs the effects of mitamoroshi, spirit fall, which includes both spirit falls that you get from the headless and also sugars. The localization says spirit fall candy's effects, which is kinda confusing. Spirit's protection inhabits the bodies of the deeply devoted for longer. It makes total sense why this skill would be in the temple arts. After all, Senpou monks make all the sugars. Apart from Gokan sugars, they buy those from Mushin. Finally, we are ready to discuss the ultimate skill tree, Mushin arts. Its original name is Hiden Ashina Mushinryu no Densho. Quite a mouthful. Let's break it into parts. Hiden means secret art, literally. This is the only text in the game that has Hiden in its name. Ashina Mushinryu, Ashina Mushin style, much like Ashina-ryu, Ashina style. But what is Mushin? The word Mushin initially confused me, even though the word consists of the simplest kanji you can find, a negative prefix and mind. I thought that maybe there are layers of meanings beneath, but then I read the description and it seems to be much simpler than I thought. Mindlessly, Ishin continued gobbling up every fighting style. A secret book of Ashina mindless arts. This book is literally a disorganized mess of whatever Ishin managed to learn from whoever in his younger years. He learned from shinobi, from Senpou monks, from an elite Okami warrior, even from a former Shura. It's kind of scary when you think about it. Even after he became Kensei, he couldn't stop. The localization describes Ishin's story quite accurately. For lust for power, the original once again uses donnyoku, raga, a Buddhist term for greed and avarice that is considered to be one of the ultimate character afflictions. Another curious line tells us that his pursuit of strength ended in him stealing the country. This drive, the drive to just learn fighting styles from whoever, the lust for strength, did not define Ishin's achievements, but himself. That attitude defined Ishin by nature. And as such, this text will never be completed because while Ishin lives, he will find more and more fighting styles to gobble up. Shadowfall's original name is Daishinobi Otoshi, Great Shinobi's Fall. It's worth noting that all skills in Mushin arts have hidden in their titles just before the name of the skill to indicate that it is a secret art. Interestingly enough, the original name of this skill is reminiscent both of Shadow Rush, Daishinobi Sashi, and the skill that both Owl and Wolf wield, but we don't have a description of, Kage Otoshi, a special shinobi death blow that Owl uses to kill Wolf back in Harada Estate, and that Wolf uses when killing Owl in the Great Shinobi boss fight. We covered it in detail in one of the previous videos, feel free to check it out. Funny, but Shadowfall would be a perfect translation for Kage Otoshi. The localized description is accurate. I am somewhat disappointed that it consists largely of just enumerating all the jumping and piercing and flying, instead of a little bit of lore. Shadowfall requires both Shadow Rush and High Monk, and you know what's even more interesting than Ishin potentially learning Shadow Rush to develop Shadowfall? In the Father boss fight, Owl actually uses Shadowfall against Wolf and not Shadow Rush, so I was mistaken in the Shinobi Arts video. I always mikirid it, and I never saw it finish, so I just assumed it was Shadow Rush, and it was quite irresponsible of me, but I went back to test, and it's Shadowfall. I just imagined this giant co-working space of dads and Lady Tomoe, learning random stuff from one another, slapping it on top of the skills they already wield, and showing off. What a time it must have been. Mortal Draw is not a part of Mushin arts. It's not a part of any arts, really, but since it is required for Empowered Mortal Draw, and we have no more skill trees to cover, we'll talk about it here. Despite the fact that it is not a part of any skill tree, it is nonetheless an Ogi skill, akin to Ashina Cross and Shadow Rush. Its name is quite simple, Fusugiri, Mortal Blade, just the name of this type of blades. We know about two of them, the red one, Hairui, and the black one, Kaimon. They are both Fusugiri swords capable of killing the Undying. I'd say the original description of the noxious mists is much creepier than its localized version. Dark red miasma seeps out from the Mortal Blade. To draw a katana that can be drawn and slice. If they weren't the servants of the divine heirs of the dragon's heritage, this skill would be impossible to use. Empowered Mortal Draw has the exact same name but another type, Hiden Fusugiri, Secret Art Mortal Blade. The last paragraph is incredibly interesting. The English localization just copied it from the Mortal Draw, but it is actually not the same. To draw a katana that can be drawn and slice. If they weren't the servants of the divine heirs of the dragon's heritage, this skill would be impossible to perfect. What doesn't really make sense to me lore-wise is how this skill came to be and why Genichiro uses it in the final fight before Isshin Sword Saint. It seems like only Tomoe could perfect the Mortal Draw and create Empowered Mortal Draw, but she didn't have access to a Mortal Blade. That was the whole point of her tragedy. They didn't have the Mortal Blade, and that's why they couldn't return home, and Takeru died. On the other hand, the second Mortal Blade, Kaimon, doesn't seem to kill the one wielding it because Genichiro pulls it out from nowhere and is very much alive. So these skills can be used by someone who is not a servant of the divine heir. The characteristics of two swords always confused me. They both can spill the heir's blood and kill the Undying. They have their unique perks like collecting dragon's tears or opening the gates to the underworld. I thought they both kill those who try to unsheath them, but apparently the Black Mortal Blade does not. We have already covered Spiral Cloud Passage when we talked at length about Takeru and Tomoe, and you can find it in the corresponding video. Every time I read, her master gazed longingly at the fountainhead spiral. For Tomoe, his little figure meant everything. My heart just breaks a little bit more. And I also still can't believe that you can actually see the fountainhead spiral from a variety of places. You can see it from Takeru and Tomoe's graves where the Everblossom used to be, the most fountainhead-like place in the castle. We are done, not only with Temple Arts and Mushin Arts, but with all the arts in the game. What a milestone. I hope you learned some new things during this part of our bottomless research. I'm not sure what to do next. Maybe I'll try to categorize consumables and whatever else is left item-wise, and then we'll move on to the second part of the project, which is traveling the locations specified in the art book and translating names of random items, decorations, staring at flower patterns in the Fountainhead Palace, and just in general exploring the environments. Don't forget to check the description for relevant links and more reading. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.